Well, thank you so much for joining me. Kind of what we're doing is we're going to talk. I have a few questions that I want to ask you, and you're going to play some music for us. And I hope that this, for the people that are listening to this show, this will spark kind of a long-term relationship with them because, yeah, you're involved in so many cool things. You have different sounds for the different projects you're working on. And so I hope that people really dig in. Before we begin with sharing some of your story, why don't you just start by playing a song for us?
All right. This is a song from my Moda Spira artist moniker, and it's a song called Valley, because I just thought in this season of pandemia, I don't know if that's a word, pandemic, I thought maybe it'd be a good place to start. So it's called Valley. Every mirror will haunt you. 'Cause there you'll see her heart so bruised, her waking nightmare has come true. A tethered body in two. So take her through this valley. I know that she will rally. Her soul is strong. Yes, walk her through this valley so she no longer carries what's dead and gone, dead and gone, dead and gone. Every memory will haunt you. But you can free her with the truth. So walk her through this valley. I know that she will rally. Her soul is strong. Yes, walk her through this valley so she no longer carries what's dead and gone, dead and gone, dead and gone. One step forward, two steps back. One step forward, don't look back. One step forward, two steps back. One step forward, don't look back. So take her through this valley so she no longer carries what's dead and gone. Walk her through this valley. I know that she will rally. Her soul is strong.
Wow. Oh my God. That is so good. Even through Zoom, it sounds wonderful.
That's impressive.
No, it sounds so good. So I'm
Good.
going to ask you some of your story, but before
man.
that, tell me about that. Is there any story behind that song? What's
Yeah,
that
so
song?
this
I mean,
song,
the lyrics are so beautiful, but yeah, what's
no,
going on there?
thank you. Yeah, so this song is on my divorce record. It's called Divorce. I released it October 2018. And it's pretty obvious. I went through my own divorce, and this song was supposed to be the last song on the record before I ended up writing a different song last minute, because that's what always happens. So it's the second to last song on the record. And for me, it's the whole record really chronicles what it is to move through the grieving process. And the vehicle of the grief was just divorce. So it's really a record about grief. It's a record about absorbing loss and metabolizing it through your body in order to release it to continue to move forward. And this song for me in particular was kind of an homage to, like, the way I usually say it is, so you have like your event, your trauma, whatever happens right there. And you start to kind of circle around it, and you have kind of tight circles initially. And, things are like pretty quickly moving when it's like really close to the event. And then as time kind of marches on, and I was going to a therapist and hanging with my community, those circles start to get like longer and more oblong and away from the trauma center, but you always kind of circle back. And initially, as you start to move away from it, when you circle back to those same feelings, it feels like, oh, is this all coming up for me again? You start to sort of freak out if you're me, and you're like, oh my gosh, what if I'm not healing? Like, what if I'm not moving forward? And the more you do this and the further you get away, you start to realize, like, I'm actually okay. This is just part of it. And so initially this song is kind of me reflecting on that. And then the chorus is really about reflecting on the idea that what's been so important for me, I'm like, 3 years out now, but like as I've moved past it and forward, is that my community was such a good mirror for me, reflecting back to me my goodness. There was so much grace for me as they grieved with me, honestly. We had laughter, and they were a real safe space to like not only sit in the trenches with me, but also kind of walk with me through it. And so it's really like a thank you to the idea of like, we all have valleys in our lives for sure, and they could be lots of different vehicles that cause our grief. But for me, what's been like so essential to my healing process is having a community walk alongside me in those times. And then in turn, it's helped me walk along others because I know what it's like. So that's why it's kind of called that. And it kind of ends with her soul is strong.
Yeah.
And that and it's just like, hey, you're okay. Like, strength isn't a reflection of how close you are to your event and your circles. Strength is the willingness and the endurance to keep putting one foot in front of the other and moving forward.
I know the following thing that I might say might sound weird, but there's a reason for it. My favorite thing about pain is that in the moment you think, oh, fuck, like, I can't live through this. This is the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And then you start doing that, right? And you've got community, you've got people. And then on the other side of it, if there is another side, or at least, you grow, you're like, wow, I did it. I think humans are constantly amazing me at how resilient. Strong and how resilient we are. And we can't do it alone. You've mentioned over and over and over again in the last 3 minutes, community. But we are so resilient and so strong. And, whether or not there's a faith aspect, attached to that, still, I mean, I've seen people all over the spectrum, irregardless of faith, like we just overcome stuff. We can get through it. And I love that homage of a song to what you went through. So besides, you gave us a peek into your story there 3 years ago with this divorce, but go back as far as you want to and kind of give us the people, places, and things that made you who you are today.
Oh, wow. Geez, what a question.
I know. Do all that in 5 minutes, will you?
I'm like the cosmos.
That's right.
Where was the sun located when I was born? I grew up in Houston, Texas. I have a dad that's from Yemen. He passed away 13 years ago, and a mom who's from like middle America, Kansas. So like I'm a halvesy, and so I'm half white, half Yemeni. And I grew up in a house where music was a life source of safety and healing for me. My mom started us really young on piano, and we would be like sing 3-part harmony on the way to church, row, row your boat with my sister and I. And it was just, music was like a way that I understood and communicated with God, the universe, however you want to say it. And it's something that like, it's more than a language. Like it's the language that like my cells understand, not just like my mind, is like a way I could probably articulate
Sure.
it. And so I remember like wanting to be a musician and an artist, but I didn't really like thought that I could do it. And I started on cello when I was 3. I did like the Suzuki program, and some people know about that. It's a really dope program to teach kids classical instruments. And I played piano. My mom was my teacher, and I, quit cello at 15. I was a competitive cellist in order to like play soccer. Like I'd been playing soccer my whole life, but I had to choose, between athletics and music and stuff. And in high school, you like just want to be with your friends, And so I quit cello, and then, picked up the acoustic guitar to learn the Dave Matthews Under the Table and Dreaming record, right? And so like bought the tab book.
Yes.
And I remember like teaching myself like songs and thinking, man, it would be so cool to be a musician, but I never shared that desire because I just didn't believe I could. I never thought I had a voice anybody would want to listen to, but I was really good at like singing harmonies, and I had an ear. And then I got to college, and I was like, maybe I'll be pre-med, maybe I'll be poli-sci. Both those would make my parents super happy, And I got halfway into my first year of college and was an undeclared, person for my major. And I taught myself a Jennifer Knapp song. And for the people who don't know who Jennifer Knapp is, so like I actually did not listen to a lot of Christian music after the age of 12, but she was like somebody that like snuck through the cracks. And now knowing who she is now, like that
Sure.
makes me super happy.
Which song was it?
It's called Peace. You are my light and my salvation. And like the guitar part is like really like complex and beautiful. And I taught myself it, and I was in the stairwell in my dorm in Andrews Hall at CU Boulder, and I made myself cry because I was like, this is beautiful.
That's amazing. That's a good
know.
moment.
And I called my parents and I said, I want to be a musician for the rest of my life. And my dad was like, this has to be a phase. This absolutely cannot be your life.
Sure.
And my mom was like, I think secretly supportive, and has thenceforth been very supportive because she's so musical as well. And so that kind of started like the thing in me that was like, I have to work at this because I'm not good enough yet. And that's not me like having a false perspective. My craft was not like tended to yet. Like I have some talent, but I also work really hard. And I learned to make records by making records. And so I made my first record my senior year of college under like the moniker Latifah, and it was called Autumn Circles, and it's a horrible record, and I made it.
I'm gonna go find it, or maybe it's not online.
It's not online, but I think there's like CDs on eBay, but they're not worth it. Don't do it, man. So like, of course, my mom's like, I still love your first CD, and
yeah, of course.
And I had a gig playing at a Christmas conference, and I sold that CD, and it was like 2,000 students or whatever. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, so I'm going to spend this much making a record. I'm going to get it back after this one gig. And it actually worked out, which are like, what are the odds, right?
Amazing.
And so it sort of like unintentionally gave me a false narrative of how the music business works.
Oh, sure.
But like, weirdly enough, it's how my career has worked thus far. And granted, as my career's developed, it's shifted a little bit. But I was always just kind of this very indie, put my head down, and like make music. And I was really driven. Like I moved out to California after graduation and like played the Long Beach Marathon. Like mile 18, like playing an acoustic guitar to like one runner every 3 minutes. And like I had like the worst gigs, man. And like I was really motivated. And it's because I loved it so much, not because I was that great. And then I remember meeting my bandmates when I moved back to Colorado, and I started a band called the Autumn Film. And we toured like crazy. We did all the bars and all the clubs. And then we were leading like church worship music on Sundays on the side just to like break even financially on tour. But we didn't even do it under any name because I wasn't like, I'm not trying to like do Christian music. I wasn't against it. I just like, this wasn't the content I was making. And so like, we had like our whole ups and downs. Like Atlantic Records talked to us after the president resigned and the new guy that took over had just signed Death Cab for Cutie and was like looking for like kind of indie rock bands. And you do all this stuff. Like you play the Viper Room and the Key Club and like, it was like, and we were making no money and doing like odd jobs when I would get back, for like a week off tour, really bad jobs. And like,
Which one was the worst job you ever had trying to make ends meet?
One of them was I was a temp and I was testing a voting registration machine.
Oh, gosh.
And I had to like use an end of a pencil and test these electronic voting machines for like 3 weeks. And I wanted to die.
Sounds like hell. Yeah.
It was really, really bad. There's a few, but that's one of the ones that really, really got to me, got to my soul. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And then, yeah, man, it's like Autumn Film kind of did a thing. And then we intersected with a producer here in town in Nashville. And his name's Jason Lenning. He's amazing. Him and his wife, Heather, and their son, Ansel, are like family to me now here. We've been friends 12 or 13 years. And we made a record. And Jason looked at me. I was 27. I had just gotten married. And to Reed, who was in the band with me. And Jason looked at me. He's like, you're producing, right? And I was like, is that what this is? Because I was the person who sat next to my mixing engineer and my audio engineer, and I asked a million questions, and I had strong opinions about everything, but I really wanted to learn. And Jason was really like giving and generous, and he was the first person I had worked with. By that time, I'd made a handful of records, but he was the first person to tell me that I was producing. And I realized I was in love with production and capturing audio, and I loved it all. And so I went back to Colorado and started partnering with my friend Dave Wilton, you should have him on, man. Like he's got his own band called A Boy and His Kite. And I co-produced his first record with him. We just finished the second one. He just released his first single last Friday called Sunny Day. And the record's so good. And he is probably the person that has invested the most in showing me and teaching me engineering and audio skills. And Dave is like he's my musical brother from another mother. And he's part of another, like a kind of Christian type band called Loud Harp as well. But
I've listened to Loud Harp before.
Yeah. So Dave's not the singer for Loud Harp, but he produces and engineers and landscapes it all. And then a boy and His Kite is him. But yeah, and so Dave and I have been working together for 11 years. We made a lot of music together, and we co-produced records for other people. He worked with me on the band that kind of came out of the Autumn Film, which is called Page CXVI, or Page 116. And that band is in the Christian music space. And we kind of started as like, we're going to just retune hymns, like these ancient songs. And we're going to like kind of have this Sigur Rós, Radiohead, Death Cab, pop influence type feeling to it. And I did it and I loved it. And I don't regret any of it, honestly. And then 6 years went by without me making a record for that moniker. And in those 6 years, the band kind of fell away. We worked together for 9 years and toured a lot out of a van. And then, people go on and have babies and go on their way. And Reed and I, we came off the road, and in a few years, our marriage just fell apart. And it's not really about, at this point for me, like who did what, as much as it was a really healthy decision, I think, for both of us in the end. And I started another moniker called Moda Spira, which is where I played that song from. And I made my first record actually about what it is to work through conflicts with somebody you love. And it was advocating, not marriage necessarily, but like fighting for relationships. And I really love that record. It's self-titled. It's called Moda Spira, Moda Spira. And then I realized my marriage was falling apart, and I had a lot of new songs coming out of me about 4 or 5 months after the event of realizing that we were going to get divorced. And I made that record, and I made a companion podcast, actually, that helps kind of like, it's sort of like Song Exploder meets a therapy session. So,
amazing.
Honestly. And my friend Luke Bronner from Milieu Media Group produced it, and he's so gifted. My friend Aaron Hale sits in and talks with me too. And we just kind of go through chronologically. I taped the podcast a year after the marriage had kind of ended. And we just kind of walk through what's the grieving process in this. And it was really therapeutic for me. I'm really grateful to not be in the same place as I was, just because healing kind of keeps you moving forward. And then now here I am. I'm releasing a new Page CXVI record, one song at a time. I just released the 5th song this past Friday. And it's been 6 years since I put out a Page record, and my theology has really changed and shifted.
Yeah.
And I thought about walking away from the project. But then I thought, even if this is my last record for Page, and I don't have a vote right now whether it's going to be or not. I wanted to put out a record that I knew would be frustrating for a large part of my audience, not to intentionally frustrate them, but to show people who are sitting in pews who are also experiencing similar questions and shifts and deconstruction and reconstruction of their faith, that they are not alone. And I just didn't feel like there definitely is some, but there's not a ton of musical content in the Christian music space that's about creating room for people.
Yeah,
And
not much at all.
Yeah, so I have just felt like really, to use a spiritual term, convicted to put this record out. And it has not been without cost. Like, I put out my divorce record in October of 2018. I actually, because of quarantine, I've been like doing all this like housekeeping of my finances and like songs and like what I'm making on what. And my gigs went down 90% after I released the divorce record. And my streams and purchases, like all my online music presence, went down 50% the month I
Holy
put that
shit.
record out. And it stayed that way. And so there is a cost to it, but I kind of I thought through it. I realized it like 3 weeks ago when I knew the gig thing was dying because that just happens. But there are people who've like embraced me and walked alongside me. But it's like I got an email yesterday, man. Like, I put out this song called "You Love All Your People," and I also I reference God as Father and Mother in the song. And man, it's not the first email I've gotten like this, but it's basically like, I'm so sad to read your lyrics. We don't get to choose how we relate to God. It's definitely, referencing the patriarchy. And I'm just going to like pray that you come back around to the truth. I've had a lot of people cancel me, which is honestly okay. Like, they're not my audience. Like, it's all right. And I'm co-producing with my friend Lucas Morton, this artist named Carly Bannister, and we were working through the last 2 days. She's amazing. And I was talking with her about it, and I was like, we don't write songs or make music to make people happy. We write songs and make music because like it's a compulsion I can't like stop. It's a need. It helps me metabolize my experience of the universe and of people and relationships. It helps me connect with God, with the divine, in a way, like I said earlier, that like releases energy in the cells of my body. And so, it's attached to how I make money, and that's what makes it complex.
Sure.
But I just, man, like, I can't put out records I don't believe in. And it's like, I could have easily
100%.
put out a Page record that had all the same ideas from 6 or 7 years ago that I was carrying, but it would have been false.
Yeah.
And to me, that is not worth the cost of like my ledger being larger, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So-
no, I do. And I mean, a couple things there before we have you play another song. Like, that's so shitty that like your sales and everything plummeted after your divorce record.
The record's the best thing I've ever made.
And that's so stupid. That's so stupid that the best thing you ever put out, and then this happens. And the reason is, I still identify as a Christian, way different than before. But
Me too.
like
Me
so
too.
like so many others,
Yeah.
it's like I can't run away from this. It looks a lot different now, but I can't run
Yeah.
away with it. But some of my fellow brothers and sisters and everyone else, like they strive so much to keep this perfect image, right? Nothing can go wrong. You can't get divorced. You can't be depressed. You can't die by suicide. You can't do all these things that life is about.
Yeah.
Because that taints the name of, the name of Jesus, the name of God,
Yeah.
and what we're called to, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And hence we have this like heightened, we have all these unhealthy, sick, hurt people walking around trying to keep a smile on.
Ugh,
That is so
brutal.
dumb that
Yeah.
you put that album out talking about this like really hard time, this really hard thing that you did not take lightly. Your ex did not take lightly. I'm just
No.
like, and still it's like, that's the line. This person, and that happened all throughout. I mean, think about if you know Christian music really well, like you mentioned Jennifer Knapp, you mentioned when Amy Grant was going through a divorce,
Sandy Patty.
like
She
Sandy
got
Patty,
divorced. Yeah.
all these, and that was the thing that set people off. And I'm like, people got shit, man. Like,
Yeah.
settle down. You've got skeletons in your closet that you hope never get revealed, right? Like, that's the thing, is we all got skeletons. We've all got things we're struggling through. And you're just trying so hard to keep up this image that like, you're really fucked someday if your stuff gets revealed. Why live that way? Just be honest, be who you are, you know?
Yeah.
That's just so sad that is a reality in the religion that kind of screams God is love, and you know, this, like, God wants everybody, right? Except for when you're hurting and when you're going through shit. Like, that's just so wild.
And it's really unfortunate, because I think what's so beautiful about faith and like belief and spirituality is it helps kind of seep through the cracks of like ideas or the way we want to like be logical about our pain. It's something that helps us access our body. It helps connect everything. Like if you were to like pour a glaze over like a cake with holes in it, like it kind of like goes, you know, it helps connect everything, and it like makes sense of all the flavors, and it can do that. And I believe that's actually the kindness of God. And so I just like, I feel, sometimes I feel like I'm literally sabotaging my own career. But I feel so good about the decisions I'm making. I'm okay with it. And to be honest, like when it comes to making money, like I also like, I'm an engineer and I'm a producer, and there's a lot of things I can do that I'm grateful that people have. Like Leslie Jordan, I got to do her last 3 songs, this EP she's releasing. She's amazing. And began to work with Carly, and like I've kind of produced records on and off. I'd usually do 1 or 2 other artists a year so I can also do my stuff and like have capacity for it. But what a privilege it is to like be a witness to and a cheerleader to artists who are making important art, you know? And I take that really seriously. And, but like, I honestly, like, I rather make money other ways than like put out songs or records that aren't true to who I am. And so, you know, all the songs I put out, like I spent 3 years making this CXVI record. I rewrote it 3 times. And it was because I zeroed in on every lyric to like really make sure that it was egalitarian, or like my friend Becky says, like gender full, in the sense that like everybody's fully represented and everything in between. And that it is like, it doesn't have spiritual violence, hate, wrath language, but it's about grace and acceptance and love. And it's about peace. And it is really hard to craft a record like that, because I grew up, you know, with really different ideas, things I was taught. You know, I thought Jesus was a white guy with blue eyes until I was like 25, you know, and that's just misinformation, you know? And so, I think I was going to play some other songs first, but I think because of our conversation, I'd love to play a song off the record called In the Garden.
Go for it.
And on the video, it's really fun. He's actually my boyfriend, Lucas, who I'm actually co-producing that record with, and he plays accordion, which is awesome on the video. But somebody else played on the record, but I didn't know him then. So, but it's basically, it came out of a conversation I had with Audrey, who's like one of my closest friends here in town. And I called her, I was in a parking lot, and I cried, and I said, I think my faith just died. And I started sobbing over Voxer. And she met me for coffee the next day, and she was really amazing. And she just said, you know, Latifah, what if it's okay to let it die? Because once that dies, something new can be born and something new can grow. And I was an avid gardener when I lived in Colorado before I moved here. And I was thinking about the analogy of like, you know, even when a seed drops from a plant, it dies before it hits the ground, and then it germinates and then sprouts into something new. And so I kind of love that. And you know, something new has been born. Something new has grown. And there's so many cycles of death and resurrection that we see repeated in the patterns of nature and in the patterns of humanity, that it would make sense that it reflects like the patterns of spirituality. And I like paying attention to patterns. I think there's information and insight there for us. And so this is basically just giving myself permission to go through that evolution. And the end is really a plea to like, to the community. Like, can we not shut people out who aren't afraid or have to, they don't even have a choice at some point really, to go through this process of death and resurrection when it comes to their spirituality. So this is in the garden. In the garden of belief, everything must die. In the garden of belief, it's the fallen seeds that grow and blossom in the spring. So let it die, let it die, let it die. For this death, it leads to life. It'll be alright, be alright, be alright. There's a dawn for every night in the garden of belief. Every season comes in the garden of belief. Help me lay down what's dead so its new resurrects. Let it die, let it die, let it die. For this day, it leads to life. It'll be alright, be alright, be alright. There's a dawn for every night. Don't shut me out of this garden. Help me to keep this heart open. Don't shut me out of this garden. Help me to keep my heart open. So let it die, let it die, let it die. For this day, it leads to life. It'll be alright, be alright, be alright. There's a dawn for every night.
Wow. I'm gonna, I think, correctly assume that song just helped a lot of people that are going through what you did. In fact, I just talked to a really good friend 2 days ago who was terrified and crying with me because she said, I don't know if it's true. I don't know what I believe right now. And she was just terrified because we're taught that if that ever happens, like, you're a heretic, you're going down a bad path, there's no return, eternal conscious torment, all of that shit that we're taught growing up. People are, without even knowing it, they are being controlled into staying a believer versus being able to really wrestle with that stuff. So, you know, and I talked with this friend the other day, and 30, 45 minutes later, you could just see the weight. We didn't accomplish much in that conversation other than me convincing her that it is a wonderful and a beautiful thing. There's more mystery in this faith than we were ever taught that there is. There are only a couple things that we can know for sure. And the rest is really up to us. And again, whatever you like, I call it the spirit. Like, we get to talk and dialogue and we just get to see what's going on. And that is a beautiful thing. That's not to be, we don't need to be scared of that.
Yeah.
Do
you know the term spiritual bypassing?
No, not that I know of.
Okay,
Tell me.
so this is something that I've thought a lot about. Of that, actually, I might make the topic of a record I'm going to make. I'm not sure yet, but so spiritual bypassing is basically when your spiritual community asks you to bypass your normal mode of operation in regards to maybe how you would love people or treat people, or even in regards to, like, if we're going to talk about Christianity, the fruit of the Spirit, which is kindness, peace, patience, generosity. Spiritual bypassing says, in order for this belief to like exist, you have to, in essence, bypass the things that make common sense to you on how to treat yourself or treat other people. So, for example, gay people should not be gay because God hates gay people. I obviously do not believe this, but I was taught that being gay was wrong. And so you meet a gay person and you think, I really love this person. They seem really cool. They seem really grounded. But because of what you're taught in your spiritual community, you think this person is lost, deceived, and living a life of sin. Even though it doesn't line up with my actual experience of them, I'm going to spiritually bypass and just choose to believe that they're sinners, and maybe I shouldn't associate with them because they're living a life, quote unquote, of evil or sin.
Sure.
So I have spiritually bypassed myself a lot for many years, and honestly, it was my relationships with people who are different from me that immediately kind of broke some of those things for me, because I was like, this doesn't make sense. I love these people, and I actually don't believe that God asks us to spiritually bypass. Now, when I confront a situation where I feel like I'm having to, in essence, choose between belongingness to a spiritual community or belongingness to love and peace and grace and connectedness, I really pay attention to what is that belief, where did it come from, and who taught it to me. But I think a lot of people spiritually bypass because they want to belong to their community, and it's not worth the risk of being alienated or cast out. And that's why, like, that song I just played was like, hey, like, what if we didn't shut each other out for the things that we're learning along the way? And what if it's okay? I don't think that God is intimidated or upset. I think God welcomes our questions about, like, this doesn't make sense. And what I know of goodness is very simple and obvious. It's not complicated, you know? And so it's been something that's really helped me kind of sort through, parse through the ideas I was taught when I was young, some of which have stayed and some have definitely died. And I think those things needed to die. I think it has helped me be more at peace and in my body, and more at peace and connected to those around me and the earth than I have ever been in my whole life, you know?
Yeah.
So,
man, those are amazing thoughts regarding spirituality and faith.
Yeah.
And I love that song. Let's switch topics a little bit, because I mean, we could talk for hours on that, and maybe we'll do it some other time over that cocktail that you're drinking. Let's talk about the before your next song. How are you doing in this pandemic, in this time? It's affected people in different ways. You know, for me and my wife, it's totally different experience, and for different people that I work with and collaborate with. So I'd love it is here, briefly, like, what's going on? What's changed? Do you feel more creative? Do you feel more restricted? And like, what's going on?
Yeah, man. I mean, like most artists or most people, I've been real sensitive to the feelings of the world at large, which has its own waves to ride, you know?
Yep.
And then, like, as an artist, like, I was supposed to go on tour with Audrey, and that got indefinitely postponed, which is hard financially. That's been really tough. I'm okay. I'm not, like, you know, in fear of getting kicked out of my house, but it's just, you know, I don't know how sustainable it is for artists at large. So that's, like, something that's definitely on my mind kind of consistently. But here's the great things about it. I actually work from home. My studio's in my house. And so, you know, when I'm not on the road, my day-to-day hasn't changed that much, outside of the fact that I'm an extrovert and I love to go out and see a lot of people, and I'm a hugger and, like, all that stuff. I have roommates, and I've sort of been quarantining in, like, a social pod of about 8 people, where we're all pretty committed to just being honest with each other about exposure and risk and how we're feeling. And everyone has stayed healthy so far, which I'm really grateful for. I don't feel like I'm wrestling with a lot of, like, massive fear. And part of that is that I have a lot of privilege in my life. And so I am grateful that, like, I'm still getting to hug fewer people, but some people.
Yep.
So I'm getting touched, which is good. I have a dog that I love. I can work from home, which is amazing. But for me, creatively, it's been pretty rough. Like, I've sat at the piano several times and, like, just feel stuck. And I've just, like, I mean, I'm 38 and I've been around this this corner enough, the bend enough of writing and making records that I'm like, eventually it's going to come. It's going to like bubble up to the surface. So I'm not worried anymore. Like I'm never going to write again, but like I've been like pretty creatively like uninspired and stifled, even though I'm having like large feelings. I'm eating good food. I'm walking every day. I'm exercising. There was like 1 week where I had like a cocktail every night. And then I realized I was like, I don't think that's good for me. And so I've been like cutting way back, just for health. But like, I don't think any of us are super prepared for the length that this is going to probably be.
Yep.
But I'm just like a day at a time kind of person. And that's one of the things that I'm actually grateful for that I learned through the divorce process and through losing my dad and a good friend of mine. You just take it one day at a time.
Yep.
And I don't need to predict the future. And it's a tough time in the world. And I have not appreciated personally how the American government is handling the pandemic. And so that's been challenging.
Yeah.
But even that I can't control.
Right.
So it's just like, I only read the news by about 3 times a week right now. 'Cause it's like all I can do.
That's healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. The hardest thing for me, 2 things. And you touched on both of them. I'm an off the charts extrovert. And I spend and I have a wonderful family that I love, and 3 kids. I'm with them every day.
Wow.
But I do, I do spend most of my day out and about, and I've traveled for the entirety of my career. I'm always on a plane somewhere.
Yeah.
And to go from 60 miles an hour to 0 overnight,
it's wild.
There's no prep. I mean, I haven't been on a plane this longest ever, and it's been like 2 months. Like,
Me too.
And that's a very privileged thing to say and experience. I feel very grateful that I get to live the life that I do. But it's hard because I just want to be with. I too am. I don't know a stranger. Like if we've made eye contact and we've said something, we're not strangers anymore. And it's hugs are fair game, and like let's exchange numbers. We'll be in touch, sort of a thing, Yeah. And now it's like all this Zoom stuff, which is fine. And I'm so glad that you and I are doing it now in 2020 instead of the Spanish flu or like even 20 years ago. Fuck that.
I know.
No internet. No internet, no anything. Like that would
Totally,
be so
man.
challenging. Like the 5 stations on TV and that's it. Or even go back further, like before 1918, 1919. Like none of that. No anything.
Yeah.
You got radio. That's about it. Like that. That'd be very hard. So I feel very blessed. But also, it is hard because we are for better or for worse, we are connected with all the people around us, the ones that we like and the ones that we don't like, the red and the blue, the left and the right, the conservatives, liberals. Like we're all connected. When they suffer, I suffer. When I suffer, they suffer. People don't see it that way, and we've got this like really weird freedom, liberty bullshit thing going on in America where it's like I can do whatever I want. That's just not actually the case. Like it doesn't. That does not happen. We are a body of people, humans, and whatever you do hurts or helps me, and vice versa. And so, the way our government is responding, even other states, like I just have to. I have not done as good of a job as you have protecting myself from news and different things. But it's just hard when you see people fucking up, and again, we don't know what we're talking about. Like there are very few people that actually know, so we're all throwing around opinions. We should open up. No, we shouldn't. And it just feels very hard right now, even recognizing the privilege that you and I have of being able to work in our sheds and in our homes, and we can be safe, and we got we got money, maybe not plenty, but we got money in the bank, and we're okay. It still just feels heavy, It's just weird, and I think mostly just not knowing when it's going to end, right? Like you got states opening up, but everybody that seems to know what they're talking about is saying second wave's coming autumn, like, and it's going to be way bigger than this one. And you're like, how could it be bigger than 85,000 Americans in 2 months? Like,
I know.
So but I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad you're healthy. I'm glad you have a few
too.
people to hug. And on that note, let's play another song because I don't want to run out of time without playing at least a couple more.
Yeah. I'm going to do this Coldplay cover that I've been digging. It's called Everyday Life. It's off the new record. I've been a Coldplay fan from the beginning. I've never been embarrassed to say it. I love adult alternative music.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris Martin. Namaste.
Like I don't listen to very much music outside of classical Broadway tunes and like music my friends make. I just don't have time for anything else. But even though I'm not like I wouldn't say I'm a Coldplay fan, you can't not like it. Like it's so good when you hear
The
a song.
melodies, man.
Yeah, he and they're just masters at putting together great music, and his voice is so good. He was on Instagram Live with Jacob Collier the other day, and I was like, you guys are, come on,
They're
this
awesome.
is so good.
Yeah, and I just really appreciate. Feel like they put out this record before all this was coming down the pike, and it's the lyrics are so poignant, and I actually just like did it because a friend of mine, Audrey and I were actually talking about like Coldplay and doing covers, and something maybe is down the pike with that, but like I just like did it for therapy for myself one day. So this is everyday life. What in the world are we going to do? What in the world are we going to do? Look at what everybody's going through. What kind of world do you want it to be? Am I the future or the history? 'Cause everyone hurts, everyone cries, everyone tells each other all kinds of lies. Everyone falls, everybody dreams and doubts. Gotta keep dancing when the lights go out.
That's fantastic.
I messed up a couple times, but it's all right.
Well, I also you froze on my end a couple times too. I don't know if it was my internet or your internet or whatever.
That's your end.
So so we'll just piece that song together. We'll figure it out. It was good.
Yeah, the audio is going to be intact. So
that's right. That's right. The audio will be amazing. No, that's super good. This is kind of a side note, but I would love to know, or I think people would like to know. You've got two band names or two moniker names that aren't, they're not self-explanatory. So right. Page CXVI and Moda Spira, like what do they mean? Where did they come from?
So Page CXVI is a C.S. Lewis reference. He's an author. And he did the Chronicles of Narnia series, and there's a book called The Magician's Nephew. On page 116 in the copy I had, it's where you first hear Aslan's voice, who's the lion and sort of the Jesus Christ figure, singing Narnia into creation. So like the characters are trapped in a space void of light and sound, and then they hear this like groaning. They say it's the most beautiful yet frightening sound they've ever heard. And then they start to see like mountains and trees, and like everything gets created before them. I loved the idea of like the moment that like you see creation into being, and that melody is what called it into existence. So that's that strange reference. And then Moda Spira is Latin for the continual mode of inspiration or breathing. And, Moda Spira for me is a place for me to explore songs that are really connected to my heart and my personal life experience. And the idea of just keep breathing, just like, I've done practice yoga a lot for 10 years on and off. And the idea of just being connected to your breath, connected to your body, connected to your humanity and your experience, and just like keep doing one, like when all else falls apart, like I tell people, like, can we just take a deep breath together, and kind of have a reset. So that's why that's called that. So that's Moda Spira.
I love both of those. They're both, I mean, I knew the Page CXVI one. I'm a huge, I don't know if there's anything that C.S. Lewis has written that I haven't read in all of the genres that he wrote in. I mean, I'm obsessed.
Totally,
like,
man.
He's amazing. And I love that. I remember so my parents they didn't push C.S. Lewis or Chronicles of Narnia on us when we were younger. They weren't big readers anyway. And so I read the Chronicles of Narnia for the first time in the bush of Zambia, Africa, out in the middle of nowhere.
That's wild.
I was going on a 6-7 week trip, and I never read the books, so I packed them in my suitcase along with a few other books that I wanted to read. And I remember very vividly reading Aslan singing Narnia into creation, into
It's a dope
existence.
scene.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Like, I remember sitting on this porch. Again, I'm out in the middle of nowhere, Zambia, Africa, far from,
Yeah.
most people that I know, out in the middle of nowhere. And I just remember feeling very like, holy shit, like, that was cool. Like, that's so
Yeah.
cool to like sing something into existence,
It's pretty amazing.
Most things
It's
that we
magic.
make. Yeah, it really is, And I fucking love magic.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so we're gonna do one more song to kind of
Yeah.
wrap things up. But before we do,
Yeah.
what are you excited about? What do you want people to go check out? If they do, take action after hearing this conversation, what do you want them to go look up?
Man, I mean, I'd be honored if they look up the brand new Page CXVI record. There's 5 songs out of 8 right now out on Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. And it's Page CXVI, or 116 in Roman numerals. And then I'm still like so proud of the Moda Spira records, but Divorce in particular. If you're along for the ride, like you're gonna have some feelings. I'm really proud of the podcast. If you're a podcaster, and I'm actually part of a team releasing a podcast in June on human sexuality and spirituality. It's called Fun Parts, and so that
Nice.
will be coming out in June. It's not out yet, but those are the things I kind of have my hands in that I am really excited about. And those like social media, it's Page CXVI, Moda Spira. People can like find me all different kinds of ways if they want to message me or whatnot.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Who is doing that podcast? Like, who are your collaborators? Anyone would
Luke
know?
Bonner, who's with Million Media Group, he produced my Moda Spira podcast
Yep,
on
you
the
said
board.
that. Yep.
He's producing it, and he's one of the hosts. There's 5 hosts. I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to say about it yet.
That's
but
fine. We can.
I am not the expert. Kind of my posture on the show is of the curious explorer who is unashamed and like just wants to ask all the questions. And
That's great.
it's really, man, we take the whole first season in Minneapolis in February.
Oh, nice.
And I like cried and laughed, and I'm like so excited. And it's for anybody who feels like they've been impacted by purity culture, which is Christians and non-Christians alike, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that's who it's for. And it's been helpful for me. I've learned a lot. So yeah, I'm really excited about it.
I think there's going to be a lot of people that will be excited to listen in. I mean, purity culture has hurt. So, and it's a complicated subject too, right? Because there are benefits to, guarding not just yourself sexually, but like guarding your heart. But we were taught that, like, you start messing around and this and that. And I'm reading Ruthie Lindsay's book right now. I don't know if you know Ruthie, my friend Ruthie Lindsay's book, her memoir, and she's talking about right before she gets married, and they were like fooling around and stuff like that, and they felt so much guilt and shame, and they just hated themselves, and they felt dirty and all this stuff. And I'm like, regardless of how or where you get your purity sexual theology from, I don't see where God's excited about making people feel that bad about it, and ashamed to the point of, I mean, and it has caused people to do really fucked up things. They get, depression, anxiety, and beyond. I mean, lots of people have done horrible things to themselves and to others in the name of trying to keep it at bay and like try to stay within the rules. And so, Fun Parts. I'm excited to listen to that when it comes out.
Yeah, I think it's coming out in June. We're kind of waiting to see. I have to do all the jingles next week, so we'll see if we can get to it.
Nice. And you mentioned this being a hard time for artists, and one thing we're trying to do along with this show is we're going to see if it works. If you're into it, friends that are listening, I started a GoFundMe. You can find it at lgad.co/COVID-19 bills. lgad.co/COVID-19 bills. And it's LGAD for my other company, Let's Give a Damn. We were also raising some money over there for it. But it's for artists specifically that have lost tons and tons of money from shows and merch and just different things that are happening now. And so again, I don't know if we'll raise some money, but if we do, it'll come back to some of the artists that we're having on this show.
That's amazing.
That need it. So go check that out, friends. And let's do one more song to sing us out of this.
I'm gonna do an oldie. It's from my first Moda Spira record, and it's called "What You Need," and it's about being there for friends, and the idea of when you're weak, I'll be strong, and when I'm weak, you'll be strong, and we'll just kind of like, you know, help each other along the way. And I think that's like kind of a good thing to go out on, right? So
Yes, I love it.
I haven't played this in ages, so this will be really fun. So,
Amazing. Well, I'm excited. We get to hear you.
yeah, here we go. When you can pick up the pieces and all you really need is someone to help you withstand all the pain and grief that swallow you up until you can't toe this line where the sea meets the I'll be what you need when you are weak. I'll be what you need when you are weak. There are days when we are weary and life just gets too heavy. The seconds seem to pass so slow. But what they say is really true, love. Our wounds can heal up, but the scars will always show. I'll be what you need when you are weak. I'll be what you need when you are weak. I know it's funny. Time will keep turning, hanging there. Oh, it's I know it's funny. Time will keep turning, hanging there. Oh, it's I'll be what you need when you are weak. Oh, I'll be what you need when you are weak.
That was so good.
Thanks.
My goodness. Thank you so much for joining us, friend.
This was
Thanks for
super.
having me.
This was super
really
fun.
Healing to just even just like play. So.
Good. Yeah, that's right. You're not seeing an audience, but people will watch this and they will watch it hopefully for a long time to come. This was super fun. Thanks for being guest number 2 on this show, for believing in it enough to take time out of your Saturday afternoon to do this.
Totally.
Yeah, you're amazing. And let's keep in touch.